to the 25th evening of Brihad Bhagavatamrita seminar. We're starting with it's Mahaprabhu Kripa. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Huh? We start already. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadesh Tarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Okay, we're starting with verse 108 of chapter 4. Hanuman speaking. I must be ready to present myself before him without delay, whenever he might call. But now you please go visit the Pandavas at their home and see the supreme absolute truth in his appearance like a human being. Yes. So Hanuman's saying that he has to stay, Kim Purusha Varsha, Purusha Loka, because Lord Ram may come any time and he has to be there. Lord Ram comes, even though he's been waiting for thousands and actually millions of years. But still, if Lord Ram comes, he must be there to receive him. And he's a little worried that Narada might not want to leave, being inspired by Hanuman's association. So therefore Hanuman says, you please go and see Lord Krishna in his appearance like a human being. Because his beauty and his charm and sweetness cannot really be described, even though Hanuman is describing these things. But it can't really be described. You have to just see it. Otherwise, if people try to describe it, but they can't get it completely right. Therefore, Hanuman wants Narada just for himself, because he knows that's really what needs to be done if you're to appreciate the Lord. So, moreover, to know fully Krishna's kindness toward the Pandavas, one must personally see it. Verse 119. Lord Krishna is fully satisfied in himself. Even great sages perceive him in their hearts or describe him with their words. He is the supreme enchanter because his wonderful pastimes are the source of endless attraction. Yes. So, Pandavas, they have just always been devotees. They never had to go through some sadhana or preparation of purifying themselves and then coming to the point of being self-realized. They've always been like that. And Krishna is so satisfied with their devotional attitude that he just gave them his full mercy. It's very rare for people to attain it. Even by advanced sages, it's difficult. So, yes. So these things have to be seen. So Hanuman continues, verse 110. Please do not let your intelligence become shrouded by the offensive idea that you and I are staunch celibates and the Pandavas mere householders distracted by political affairs. Yes, according to a certain standard, it's commonly like this, that if someone is particularly a sannyasi, then because of that, he's on a higher level than any householder, a higher level than any householder could possibly be. So, yeah. So for people like that, they would think that the Pandavas are householders, whereas Hanuman and Narada, they're strict celibates. Celibates, actually. So people might think that, Hanuman and Narada, they're on a higher level than the Pandavas because of their situation in terms of ashram. So therefore they might look down on the Pandavas. But here Hanuman is saying, don't do that. Don't make that terrible mistake. It's offensive. It's like a fatal mistake to think like it. Yes. A grave offense against very exalted, pure devotees who are actually on a higher level than Narada and Hanuman. So now Hanuman is going to praise the Pandavas. And, I think in order to do justice to this, I'm going to have to read the verses because there's some quite substantial purports here. So we're starting with verse 111. I'll just read the translations, then we'll come right through. Those Pandavas never desire anything material. They constantly serve Lord Krishna's lotus feet. And indeed, their own lotus feet are worshipped by the spiritual masters of the Paramahansas. Wow. 112. The eldest of these brothers rules the state out of love for the personality of Godhead. Thus, his kingdom is rich, all sorts of assets, really enjoyed by the demigods. By sacrifices like the Rajasuya, and he has earned pious credits great enough for attaining the world of Lord Vishnu. And while still in this world, he rules the entire sphere of Jambudweep. 114. His pure fame is known throughout the three worlds. His possessions evoke the envy of the gods. The king achieved all this opulence by Krishna's mercy, and he has offered it all to Krishna. He never had any power to please him. His heart always burns in the fire of love for Krishna. Those garlands, fine garments, and sandalwood pulp attract him no more than they would attract a man afflicted by the fire of hunger. 117. Just see, superlative queen is none other than Srimati Draupadi, and his brothers are such men as blessed Bhimasen and Arjuna. They are dear to him not because of bodily ties or because they help him reach the four goals of material life, but because of their loving bond with the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. 119, which is the last verse of the chapter. But what can a forest monkey like me say about the Pandavas? Your lordship already knows much more than me about their glories. Okay, so back we go to 111. Those Pandavas never desire anything material because they constantly serve Lord Krishna's lotus feet. And indeed, their own lotus feet are worshipped by the spiritual masters of the Paramahamsas. So the thing is that, let me read the purport. As powerful kings in an age when royal status meant much more than now, the Pandavas commanded immense resources for control and enjoyment. But the Pandavas were attracted only by pure devotional service to Sri Krishna's lotus feet. And so their own feet were worshipped by the greatest of renounced sages. Many men commonly honored as self-realized saints are in fact polluted by impersonalism and subtle desires for fame and power. True Paramahamsas are extremely rare in this world, especially in modern times. Even 5,000 years ago, the ecstatic devotion of the Pandavas distinguished them as saints among saints. 112. The eldest of these brothers rules the state out of love for the personality of Godhead. Thus his kingdom is rich in sorts of assets, rarely enjoyed by the demigods. Now, if they've got, as described, if they've got no interest in royal opulence, etc., why were they living like that? Living like they were? Well, it's only as a burden of love. It's nothing else. Just as a burden of love. Because Krishna wanted him to, and because as king, he could spread Krishna consciousness much more effectively than if he was a brahmachari or even a sannyasi. Yes. Yes, because as king, well, he's just, he can control everyone and everything. So, Yudhisthira knew that in this material world, there are two types of service which are not available in the spiritual world. This is interesting. Yeah. So one type of service is killing demons, and the other type of service is preaching to the conditioned souls. So these things are not available in Goloka Vrindavan. Not involved, not available. So Maharaj Yudhisthira knew that in order to deliver the fallen conditioned souls, we have to preach. And if they're too conditioned, we may have to kill them. Of course, that was very rare. That was extremely rare. Yeah. And therefore, there's a nice verse spoken. First Canto, chapter 12, verse 4. Maharaj Yudhisthira Maharaj Yudhisthira administered generously to everyone during his reign. He was exactly like his father. He had no personal ambition and was free from all sorts of sense gratification because of his continuous service unto the lotus feet of the Lord Sri Krishna. Yes. So that's a little explanation about that. Then it continues that gratifying the citizens does not mean that Yudhisthira Maharaj pacified them with bread and circumstances or a booming materialistic economy. It means he encouraged them to become Krishna conscious and made all practical arrangements towards that end. The pleasure of pure devotional service is the only real source of satisfaction for all human beings. So, Narada tells Shonaka Rishi the following. Narada, speaking to Shonaka Rishi, you are most extremely fortunate because the entire population is being empowered by you spiritually. The truly fortunate leader of society is one who can instill devotion for Lord Hari in the hearts of persons tormented in material existence. And Suta Goswami in Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 12, verses 5 and 6, Suta Goswami says the following about Maharaj Yudhisthira. News even reached the celestial planets about Maharaj Yudhisthira's fame, his queen, his stalwart brothers, his extensive land, his worldly possessions, his sovereignty over the planet Earth, and the sacrifices by which he would attain a better destination. O Brahmins, the opulence of the king was so enchanting that the denizens of heaven aspired for it. But because he was absorbed in the service of the Lord, nothing could satisfy him. except the Lord's service. Wow. Mhm. And there's an interesting point here in the purport. In Vedic civilization, the ruler of the kingdom has the right to claim 1/6 of the citizen's total wealth to maintain the government and his personal household. A king also received 1/6 of the people's karmic reactions, which in a pious place like the kingdom of the Pandavas meant getting a great stock of good karma because the citizens at that time were so pious and nice and in so many cases very Krishna conscious. But even if they weren't Krishna conscious, they were really pious. Yes. So therefore, Maharaj Yudhisthira, ruling over them, he got a lot of benefit. He got tremendous benefit, actually. So then, following the lead of Maharaj Yudhisthira, his young brothers helped him rule the kingdom, but were not attracted to material enjoyment. The 5 brothers are universally famous for their cooperative spirit and their zeal in upholding the highest principles of human civilization. Well, that's a lot about Maharaj Yudhisthira. Really a lot. How he simply ruled out of love for the Lord. But by the mercy of the Lord, his kingdom was always fully opulent and just rich in all sorts of assets, really enjoyed by the Lord. And we've mentioned this before, that, well, actually, no, let me tell you a story. Just, devotees, just sit down, relax. I'm going to tell you a story. Maharaj Yudhisthira was ruling in Hastinapur. And Krishna would come often and associate with him and the other Pandava brothers. And he would see Draupadi. So Krishna would come, and Maharaj Yudhisthira, the king, he was always fully absorbed in devotional service, just quite amazing. But then one day a very extraordinary thing happened. Maharaj Yudhisthira approached Lord Krishna, as he often did. I mean, he regularly did. Normally he would approach the Lord and just beg for mercy. Please be kind to me. Give me intelligence. Give me the strength to carry out my duties. But this time, no. Maharaj Yudhisthira came up to Lord Krishna and said, my Lord, I want you to give me loads of money. I want so much money. I want more than anyone's got. And yeah, so please help me with that. And Krishna was taken aback, almost shocked. And he said to Maharaj Yudhisthira, I thought all you wanted was pure devotional service to me. But Maharaj Yudhisthira said, no, 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 no. I want as much as I can get my hands on material things. So Krishna was really disappointed. He was really disappointed. And Maharaj Yudhisthira noticed that. So he spoke to Lord Krishna. And he said, you know, the reason I want more wealth than anybody else has is because many people think that if you become a devotee of Krishna, then Krishna takes everything away from you. And you're just left like a penniless person. You're like a person on the street. So I want the people to see that here am I, here I am, and I'm a devotee, I'm one of your devotees, but I'm just I've got so much money and opulence and just all these things. I want the non-devotees to see this. So then they'll understand that here is a devotee of Krishna who is rich. So it's not true that if you become a devotee, then you become very poor. This is how Maharaj Yudhisthira was thinking. And he told the Lord that. I want them to see, here is a devotee of Krishna who's very wealthy, and then they'll become attracted to me. They'll become attracted to becoming devotees. And that's what Yudhisthira wanted. He wanted more and more people to become devotees. Mm-hmm. Yes, right. So a verse from the Bhagavatam is quoted, 112:4. Emperor Yudhisthira administered generously to everyone during his reign. He was exactly like a father. He had no personal ambition and was free from all sorts of sense gratification because of his continuous service unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Well, unto the lotus feet of the Lord Sri Krishna. Yes. Okay. So here's Sutta Goswami describing King Yudhisthira in Srimad Bhagavatam 112, verses 5 6. News even reached the celestial planets about Maharaj's fame, his queen, his stalwart brothers, his extensive land, his worldly possessions, his sovereignty over the planet Earth, and the sacrifices by which he would attain a better destination. O Brahmins, the opulence of the king being Maharaj Yudhisthira, the opulence of the king was something that the denizens of heaven aspired for it. But because he was absorbed in the service of the Lord, nothing could satisfy him except the Lord's service. Very nice. Okay, verse 130. By sacrifices like the Rajasuya and Ashvamedha, he has earned pious credits great enough for attaining the world of Lord Vishnu. And while still in this world, he rules the entire sphere of Jambudweep. So he performed Rajasuya and Ashvamedha sacrifices. In the Bhagavatam, there's the description of his big Rajasuya sacrifice. Krishna killed Shishupal. Yeah. And it's interesting, the verse says that by doing those sacrifices, he earned the pious credits, the pious merit so great that he could go back to Godhead. You know, normally these yagyas, they're simply for material gain. But in the case of Maharaj Yudhisthira, it wasn't like that. Because he performed those sacrifices in pure Krishna consciousness and then offered all the results to Krishna. So the results, the benefits he got were transcendental. In that way, he earned the privilege to enter Vaikuntha. And on the way, not just on the way, but being eligible for that highest position means the other positions between just normal life on the material level and Vaikuntha, all the other positions in between just ordinary life on the material level and life in Vaikuntha, he had access to all those other planets. And he would visit those other planets sometimes. The joy of life in Vaikuntha automatically includes all the joys found in Svargaloka and elsewhere. And in addition to these benefits for the next life, Yudhisthira prospered in this life as well. His pure fame is known throughout the three worlds. His faultless possessions evoke the envy of the gods. This is now verse 115. The king achieved all this opulence by Krishna's mercy and has offered it all to Krishna. It never had any power to please him. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Maharaj Yudhisthira had just basically everything and anything that anyone could hope for or desire materially. Even the demigods on higher planets didn't have such opulence. They could only dream of such opulence. So he enjoyed such fabulous opulence in this life, but naturally he knew that he could expect more in the next because of his being a pure devotee. Yes. In contrast to the wealth, knowledge, and other assets of people in this world, his assets were permanent because their source was Sri Krishna's satisfaction rather than the material course of karma. When Yudhisthira offered his assets back to Krishna, no possibility remained that they would corrupt him. Those assets being dedicated to Krishna in selfless love could only further enhance the virtue of Yudhisthira's character. Text 116. Since his heart always burns in the fire of love for Krishna, those garlands, fine garments, and sandalwood pulp attract him no more than they would attract a man afflicted by the fire of hunger. Ah, yes. So, when a devotee is to the level of Krishna prema, then all their faults are destroyed and they become so completely satisfied that they can't be distracted. Nothing else can divert their attention. With people on our levels, then it's possible that some people could just decide that well, anyway, so the slightest touch of pure prema satisfies the devotees so much that nothing inferior can divert their attention. And, for devotees who are on lower levels, sometimes they get caught a little in between, you could say. What do they want? Some material pleasure or to be in Krishna consciousness? But when a devotee's Krishna consciousness comes to that level, like the level of Maharaj Yudhisthira, or anything even just near that, then there's nothing which can divert their attention. No material attraction which can divert their attention from Krishna into the material world. And then an interesting point is made. To non-devotees, the effects of prema may seem painful. The devotee seems to burn in torment while separated from the Lord. And even when enjoying the company of the Lord, the devotee may be in anxiety that I am going to lose the Lord's association shortly. So therefore, people may think that Krishna prema, love for Krishna, it's not nice. Either you're burning in pain when you're separated from Krishna, or when you're with him, you're burning with pain, thinking, when's he going to leave me? So people think that, if people know about these things at all, then they may think that, oh, we don't want that. We don't want that. In fact, viraha bhava, devotional service and separation, is the highest essence of loving ecstasy. The intimate devotees of Krishna and Sri Vrindavan constantly experience viraha bhava. As Shukadeva Swami says in describing the fall season in Vrindavan, the autumn season. Except for the gopis whose hearts had been stolen by Krishna, the people could forget their suffering by embracing the wind from the flower-filled forest. The wind was hot nor cold. Yes. But let us carry on. The gopis of Vrindavan were so intensely absorbed in Viraha Bhava, the ecstasy of separation, that the cool breezes of autumn only increased the burning in their hearts, because this was the time of the year when the fever of their hankering to be with Krishna reached its peak. Hanuman cites the analogy of a man suffering from hunger. The fire of extreme hunger dries up all the elements of his body so that he can no longer enjoy the pleasure of clothes or other objects of enjoyment, or even the association of family and friends. Possessing worldly things merely adds to his frustration. Only when his hunger is removed will he be relieved of anxiety. Similarly, the gopis can be satisfied only by the company of Krishna. So Hanuman continues in verse 117. Just see, his superlative queen is none other than Srimati Draupadi, and his brothers are such men as the blessed Bhimasen and Arjuna. 118. They are dear to him not because of bodily ties or because they help him reach the four goals of material life, but because of their loving bond with the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Well, there's a purport here, and it explains that the attachment, spiritual attachment of Yudhisthira to his brothers and wife. Anyway, he was very attached to them spiritually. It wasn't based on identification with anyone's material bodies, but on the pure spiritual identities of him and his family as eternal servants of Krishna. Draupadi was the most excellent queen any emperor could have. And she was empowered with the beauty and other transcendental qualities of Lord Vishnu's consort, Lakshmi Devi. But Yudhisthira's affection for her was not due to being attracted by these qualities. He was completely immune to such attraction. That's amazing. And so Yudhisthira's brothers and his wife helped him to fulfill the duties of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. But these four things, Dharma, material religiosity, Artha, material improvement, or like becoming materially wealthy, Kama, enjoying material life, and ultimately Moksha, going for liberation. So his brothers and wife helped him achieve those things. And therefore he was very pleased to have them in his company. But even though he fulfilled all those responsibilities of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, but still he was not at all from the lotus feet of Krishna. And he loved his brother Bhima his other brothers, and his wife Draupadi, only because they had pure devotion for Krishna. This is very amazing, isn't it? But then an interesting and important point is made, that anything or anyone associated with Krishna is dear to a pure Vaishnava. Yes. So when Vaishnavas come together in either casual or lifetime relationships, they naturally develop love for one another. They relish great pleasure, tasting together the rasas of Krishna consciousness. So, in the family of the Pandavas, the wife and the younger brothers especially benefited from following the lead of Yudhisthira. And let's see here, last verse of the chapter. Oh, and Hanuman says, but what can a forest monkey like me say about the Pandavas? Your Lordship already knows much more than I do about their glories. So, here Hanuman is speaking in great humility, that he's just a forest monkey. What can he do? But it's not like that at all. He is no subhuman. It's just because of his extreme humility that he feels like that and he speaks like that. Because actually, Hanuman is extremely deep. Extremely deep. Interesting little point here is that in the Sanskrit for this verse, Hanuman calls Narada Bhagavan. That's interesting, isn't it? Narada Hanuman addresses Narada as Bhagavan, which means virtually equal to God. And he also understands, Hanuman rather, he not just understands, but he acknowledges that Narada already knows well the greatness of the Pandavas. Therefore, Hanuman is suggesting that Narada, rather than spend more time listening to him, should at once proceed to the kingdom of the Kuru. So thus ends the 4th chapter of part 1 of Srila Sanatana Goswami's Brihad Bhagavatamrita, entitled Bhakta, the Devotee. And we'll finish here for tonight. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.